everyone. This is Asha Saxena. Welcome to the AI Talk Show. Today, we're going to be exploring a topic that sits at the intersection of technology, leadership, and human values. And I'm passionate about this topic because this is the core of what we are building in the world of AI, responsible AI, the future of leadership that influences how we are going to act, live, and build our communities, our technology, how we consume this technology, how we interact with this technology. I am so passionate about this topic, Elizabeth, that I landed up starting an organization around it. I was writing my first book, The AI Factor, and one of the chapters was about ethical AI. And it moved me so much that the power of these models to consume the data, the biases, the uh, imperfection of the data, and exponentially enhance it in their outcomes really bothered me. And I truly believe that as leaders, how we show up, how we ingrain these values and models into our programs, our solutions becomes really, really critical. We are truly living through one of the most transformative leadership era in history. When AI, ChatGPT came out, all the leaders came out and spoke about how important this time in the history is going to be. AI is no longer just a tool or technology. It's collaborating and shaping decisions, amplifying influence, and redefining what leadership actually means. But when you think about AI systems becoming autonomous, the question is not about what AI can do, it's how leaders should lead in this new environment. And I think that's the reason responsible AI begins with responsible leadership, influencing, to influence this in clarity, ethics, and authenticity. And I think that's what leadership today means. And I did a TEDx and I talked about human upgrade. And I think it is so important that as humans, how we show up becomes really critical. In today's environment, I think effective leaders aren't simply adopting AI, they're shaping how it's governed, it's deployed, and trusted. I get to run some of the AI steering committees, and I enhance and I emphasize the value of understanding the risk, the governance, the value these models can give you. But really, it's about building AI, deploying this AI with trust and responsibility. And that's why I'm so excited that today we have one of the leading voices in the field, Dr. Elizabeth Adams, Chief Engagement Officer at the Minnesota Responsible AI Institute, a global advisor on AI ethics and equity. Dr. Adams, it's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm really excited to get to know you a little bit better and also the work you're doing and how impactful this work is. So before we get started about the leadership and how it's influencing our world in the age of AI, please share a little bit about your background with us.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much for having me. I always love engaging in conversations about responsible leadership, about responsible AI, because as you mentioned before, we as leaders need to step forward and ensure that we steward this powerful technology with care. So just a little bit about me and to kind of put my framing into some context. So I've been in the responsible AI space for the past 10 years, and I've seen it evolve from ethical AI, principled AI, trustworthy AI. We have many different definitions. And now, 10 years later, we have so many leaders who are facing all kinds of nuances with AI. How do I lead this new workforce with an AI as well as a human? And so I've explored over the past 10 years how leaders in organizations think about adopting responsible AI, like what are those principles that they're building their AI systems upon. And then I've also studied those organizations that have stalled responsible AI and what has happened in their organization. And so I've seen leadership evolve over the past 10 years, as I mentioned, to really getting to the heart of the question, which I know we'll talk about later, which is, well, how might I lead without urgency and fear? How might I reconnect my personal values to the values of my organization, as well as to the principles of responsible AI? And what might that look like from a leadership perspective? So I'm super excited to be here and to kind of pepper in some of my experiences along the way to kind of help the listeners understand that you can start where you are. And so super excited to be here. Thank you for that.
I have to say that I was in Europe a couple of weeks back, and when I was there, I was on a panel, and the audience was asking questions around the balance between governance, policy, responsible AI, and innovation. And a lot of times they talk about, can it be a roadblock when you're thinking about all these guardrails? And when I see, responsible AI, I don't see that as a guardrail. And what I was saying was, having a lane will help you run fast. Having, you know, some kind of ground rules, governance, ethics, responsible AI principles will help you get the best outcome. What have you heard when you're traveling? What are people's concern about adopting responsible AI?
I think that's such a great question because the narrative around responsible AI has been around slowing down innovation. And that's because a lot of people jump into the space without really understanding how to connect the dots for a leader. Let's think about cybersecurity. Does anyone say cybersecurity slows down innovation? It's a must-have in every single organization, right? So why should responsible AI be any different? When I talk to leaders, as I mentioned in my opening, I think one of the things we have to do is connect responsible AI principles to the organization's values. If you go to any website for any organization, you look at their core values, a lot of them are about transparency, about innovation, about trust, about quality, whatever they are. And if you do a quick mapping to responsible AI principles, you can see that most of them absolutely align. So it is important that we ensure that we have governance and organization so that the employees across the board can line up their work behind how the organization has decided to push those ethic principles forward so that they know in their specific job what they are supposed to do to adhere to that. So governance, while it typically has been focused on the technical aspects, the design, the development, the model training, there's a whole other part of the organization, 70% part of the organization that also needs to be included. And just like cybersecurity, you wouldn't just leave it to the CISO and the CISO's team. You absolutely have AI or literacy training for the rest of the organization. People have to model what it means to be good stewards of cybersecurity principles, and we have to do the same with ethics. The reason why is because there's too many AI tools out there. I just was at a leadership summit and I presented over a slide with over 50 Gen AI tools. And you know that in order for any one of those tools to come into the marketplace, there's a whole AI lifecycle. There's product teams and testing teams and data scientists, and there's customer care, and there's accountants and procurement teams. And so there's no way that every one of those particular tools could be in the marketplace without introducing some risk unless we have strong governance principles. So it's a must-have. And I like to tell people, think of it like cybersecurity. We've got to change the narrative around encouraging people to use AI, design AI, as if they're thinking about the values of their organization.
Yeah, I love the fact that you talked about the organization's value and talked about why it's must have. It's not an option. It's something which needs to be ingrained into the systems and processes. You've seen, globally, and I think somewhere the leadership has to evolve from just intuition and authority to influence ground. We want to make sure that it's grounded in data, systems, and transparency. I think, and that's where a lot of retail organizations, when we talk about healthcare or retail organization, the whole GDPR came out because it was about being transparent, let the data be owned by the consumer who owns the data. How do you see the leadership influence changing in this new era, when we call it intelligence technology, where algorithms, not just humans shaping decisions and precisions, not just leaning on people anymore, but it's also algorithms which are changing how we show up.
That's,
What do you think about leaders?
yeah.
How do they show up? How do they play in this new age? What is
Yeah.
their role?
So a couple things. So there's leadership that's based on the culture or the environment that you're a part of. And then there's this personal accountability, my personal values. How do I be a good leader and help my employees thrive and my organization succeed? The first part, so if you're thinking about Europe and you think about how Europe has led across the globe in coming up with frameworks around data privacy and protection, those leaders are thinking differently about how to lead because, again, they have different guardrails and different requirements, and they are concerned about organizational risk or reputational risk, but they're also very concerned about compliance.
Yeah.
Here in the US, where I am, we don't have the same types of guardrails. We might have data privacy principles that are scattered around different municipalities, but as a whole, our charge has been from a leadership and organization perspective to lead in this innovation race. So that creates this kind of imbalance from a person like me who wants to lead with care, who wants to see employees thrive, who wants to see their organization still succeed in the age of AI. And so there's this balance. And so for me, I have to tap into, and this is what I help leaders do, tap into their own intuitive kind of way that they lead, understand what your limitations are. None of us are ever going to understand all the ins and outs of any AI system. It's just impossible. But what is your sweet spot? Where do you thrive? And how might you bring that forward in your leadership space? For me, it's about people. It's about employee engagement. It's about understanding the second and third order consequences of what happens when AI makes its way into society. And it's also about organizational efficiency and readiness. So I know where my skills are, right? And that's where I encourage leaders to think about when, of course, you have to think about what your organization wants you to do, your OKRs, your KPIs. But what about you? What is that place in you where you want to thrive as a leader and begin to think about maybe what your legacy is? Let me just say this. I understand it's a challenge because things are moving so fast. And not only are they moving fast at work, they're moving fast at home. So we have a lot to balance. And so we need to give ourselves grace throughout all of this. We haven't been here before. You said it in your opening. It's one of the most incredible transformational leadership experiences all of us are having. So depending on your organization and the compliance and the readiness that you need to have, that's a different type of leadership and a leadership skill that's called forward. But then where I like to help leaders is kind of like more in that background. How do you align your personal values with the work that you have to do? Understanding your limitations and understanding your strengths, and where do we go from there?
You one of the leaders in the Minnesota Responsible AI Institute. What have you seen in the institute that has worked when you work with organization, and what is the biggest challenge?
Okay, so that's great. So I actually founded the Minnesota Responsible AI
Oh,
Institute, and we work with a lot of mid-sized to small businesses. And so, as I mentioned, my career and leadership has evolved over the past 10 years. When organizations bring us in, they typically have not decided yet that they want to have a responsible AI team or that they want responsible AI to show up in all of their practices. They're still curious. And so we come in and we help at all levels of the organization around AI integration and organizational readiness with leadership around responsible AI training. What does it mean again to lead these various workforces, AI and human, and then at the employee level where they want to help drive their engagement. And then we tie that to sustainability because we believe responsible AI is a workforce pathway to economic success. And so what we're finding is that there's still a lot of questions, there's still a lot of curiosity, and where we'd like to be helping organizations advance a little further and quicker than they are, many are still just wrestling with, we have this tool, we thought there'd be higher adoption, there's not. Can you help us with that? And so that looks like us coming in to do workshops with their leadership team. We're using Gen AI to help them model how to use how to use AI responsibly. So it looks very different based on the organization, what their need is, where they are. But we're happy because we get to tap into all of these different scenarios and learn from them. And then that helps us inform our work and our mission.
so when you're working with this mid-sized companies or small, and I would think it's much easier to work with an agile organization, which is ready to accelerate their responsible AI journey, is there a framework? What is the best practice? What would you recommend that somebody who's listening here on LinkedIn can actually take home today and implement within their organization?
Oh, that's such a great question. And I will say this, just because an organization is flexible and agile, it doesn't mean they're ready to start their journey as fast as maybe those of us that have been working in this space. And so I do have frameworks at the Minnesota Responsible AI Institute. We have several frameworks. One of them is Leading What's Next. And that is our very initial framework that helps leaders connect their core values to the principles of responsible AI, so that we help them learn that you're already operating within a set of values. So responsible AI is not a departure from them. And then we take it a step further and we talk about how we might need to modernize their organizational practices. That might be, again, a framework, which is what I advise, is immediately setting up a vision for AI. What is your vision? Even before strategy, you have this tool. Okay, great, you have the tool. What is it you want to do? What is the outcome for your employees? And from there, then you can strategically begin to pull together your internal council, many call it governance. Governance will look different if you are developing an AI tool or if you've procured it and you need to ensure its appropriate use within the organization. So again, if I had to, excuse me, pull out one thing, it's first off, align your core values with the principles of responsible AI and set a vision that can be cascaded across the organization so that people understand and begin to trust why this AI solution is now in their workplace. Many are fearing that AI will take their jobs. And so by engaging employees in the vision and in your strategy and in aligning your core values to the principles of responsible AI, it gives you a great start, a great jump start in your AI journey.
I love that, because I feel that if you're not aligned to what your outcomes are, then it's like, you're running without having a direction or having a goal. So it's great to have that started. And also, I love the fact that you want to align responsible AI from the very beginning and embedding those principles from the very start. But when we talk about the age of AI,
Mhm.
what I feel is that AI is accelerating change. It is AI, definitely, it's a technology that's going to amplify not only change, but also uncertainty. It is very hard in this day and age to make authenticity more critical than ever. From your perspective, what does it mean for executives to lead with purpose and authenticity when there's so much transformation that's been happening within AI? Leaders need to build trust and connection, not just through what they know, but through who they are and their values are being, what they're bringing to the table as they're implementing this AI. I mean, AI sometimes feels like it's an engineering problem, it's a technology problem. But if you truly think about it, and especially when we come from this world of responsible AI, it truly is a leadership challenge, not just
Yeah,
technology.
it's a leadership challenge, but it's shared leadership and it's shared responsibility. I've seen a lot of leaders get lost in the hype. I've seen a lot of leaders posting on LinkedIn about what they're doing. And my first question is, well, what about your employees? What about the rest of the organization? I've seen a lot of leaders try to mimic that they're AI experts so that they aren't faced with critique from others because of maybe their role. I see leaders racing too fast to a solution without pausing and being still for a moment to understand where is it that you want to go with AI. And so that is a part of my work. I work behind the ones and zeros. And that was a lane as a leader that I chose very, very early on because I was interested in the stories. I want to know how people are navigating and thriving in the age of AI. And so for leaders who are interested in that, one of the things that we talk about is giving yourself some grace. So remember, we talked about that. And that whatever is happening out there doesn't necessarily mean that that's real for you and real for your organization. And so let's kind of quiet the noise. And then one of the things that I asked them honestly is, where do you personally want to go? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Do you even want to stay in this environment? should we work on a succession plan and maybe build other leaders? Like, I want to tap into their truest desires. And so what it looks like for those leaders who decide to take this journey with me, we could call it AI, responsible AI, whatever the term needs to be out there, but they're offering me in a safe space what their truest desires are. They're concerned about their kids. They're concerned about their family. They're concerned about the resources that we've come to depend on here in Minnesota: fishing, agriculture, water, and farming. And so, okay, now that we have an understanding of your truest desires, let's put together a leadership plan that still has you leading and innovating, still has you meeting your OKRs and your KPIs. It still has you modernizing your employee practices so that job descriptions are now including the AI responsibilities. Let's demonstrate and model what purposeful leadership looks like, and not leadership, again, that's racing ahead of a solution so that you can appear to be some great voice on LinkedIn or some other platform. So it's about pausing, it's about reflection, and it's about facing those fears that you might come off as maybe not as authoritative as you want to, because this narrative out there is that you have to have these 5 checklists or this 5 points in order to demonstrate that you're a thought leader. I personally have left that life a long time ago, and I have found more joy personally by tapping into the things that I care the most about in the age of AI. And I know that other leaders want to too. And that is part of the valuable work and the beautiful work that I get to do now.
You know, being a leader, you don't have to worry about sitting and coding these models. As leaders, you actually get to work with your technical team and your business team to understand what really the problem you're solving. It truly, today, I feel like more than ever, leadership demands the emotional intelligence, understanding. Could be digital literacy or moral clarity of how you're going to work with this powerful tool. So leadership is just not about being the smartest technical mind or being the smartest process mind, but really about understanding how to navigate this world and bring the human capital to get along with you, just not leaving the humans behind. There are tons of jokes on TikTok and social media about how people will forget how to talk to each other. This morning, my friend sent me this little TikTok video which said, somebody goes to the deli and looks at the person on the counter and goes on ChatGPT and says, "What should I say now that I'm here?" Say hello. And so it was really funny how then the other person, he said hello. What do I say now? So it is so important that we bring people along. I mean, that's exaggeration clearly, but how do you bring people along when models are going to make decisions? Agency is going to take control. The world will be run by our agents, and agents will be talking to each other, and we'll be living in the world which is a place where we have co-workers who are AI agents who are working and collaborating with us. So it is the new world where we need to strengthen our leadership identity, and we need to make sure that as we enter this world, we are building the organization. I keep going back to responsible AI because we're talking to you, but that is really the essence. Listen, I can talk to you forever, but the last question I would say is, what would you want to leave the audience who's listening today behind with? That in this new era, how do they strengthen their leadership identity, and how do they actually become the voice of championing responsible AI within the organization? It might sound hard, it might sound too idealistic, might sound like I am day to day need to get this done and I need to jump in and use, because my boss wants me to use the AI to automate this process. How do they show up? How do they take the responsibility? How do they take maybe one or two things from this conversation and make their world a better place?
I love that question, and I'll just share what I did. When I worked in organizations that had a specific role and task, a number of tasks for me, had my job description, And I had to meet those deliverables, right? I mean, that's what we're there for. We're a stakeholder in the organization. We want our organization to succeed. And part of that is ensuring that I'm helping the organization succeed. I took a different route, which was I didn't necessarily find a path always at work for me to explore more leadership development that was more heart-centered leadership development. So I developed myself outside of work. I started speaking at smaller organizations and asking them if I could share what I was learning about AI, could share what my hopes and my fears were. And I started building safe community spaces where not only was I crystallizing my message, but I was also informing other people who were going to be, evangelists as well for responsible AI. I started learning about their hopes and their fears. And so for me, if I were to start this again 10 years ago, I would tell people to find or create community where it's a safe space for you to explore these things. Could be, I don't know, like I said, a local community group. If there is a space for you to do that and a path for you at work, please do that there, because then you are taking these real-time scenarios that you are finding yourself in as a leader, as an employee, and applying that to possibly a new way of leading. I did that as well when I worked for an organization that had employee resource groups. I started speaking up in the employee resource groups. And what happened was, because of my prior speaking up, crystallizing my message in the community, by the time I got to the corporate spaces to do this, I was then invited by the chief privacy officer to help write the first AI ethics principles for that organization. It was part of a working team. So you never know where this true sense of leadership will lead you. But ultimately, for me, I want to be able to sleep at night and say that at the end of the day, I did the very best I could. I was in alignment with my leadership skills and my leadership path, and I helped people learn how to navigate this powerful technology. And so those are the steps that I took. Again, find a safe space or create a safe space, even if it's in your family, and start crystallizing your message. What is it that you want people to know about you and the way that you lead? And I believe that will bleed over or carry over into other parts of your life.
My God, so many great points, Elizabeth. I am so glad that you found the time to come and talk. And with that, I want to come to an end and thank you for being here and sharing all your insights on what is such an important topic. There's one insight that stands out for me. It's AI doesn't replace human influence. It reveals the quality of it. And as leaders, our challenge isn't just to deploy a smarter system, but to lead with greater consciousness. We need to ensure that our intelligence, both human and artificial, serves humanity with purpose and integrity. So for a future of responsible AI, it's not going to be written just by the coders, but by the leaders. So I think as leaders, you, me, all of us have to show up with courage to align innovation with values and to shape influence that inspires trust. So to everybody who came in today and is here to listen to us, I want to thank you all for joining us at the AI Talk Show. Today's discussion I hope it gave you new perspective on leadership, AI, and how you show up, and how are the one or two things you can take away to make sure that you are making your world a better place, your organization a better place. I'm Asha Saxena, and I'll see you next time with more conversation, more thought-provoking discussions, and continue sharing your thoughts, your questions, and we'll continue these discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.